John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. His childhood was marked by a series of troubling experiences that would unfortunately foreshadow his future. Gacy grew up with a father who was not only abusive but also homophobic, creating a household environment filled with fear and tension. This abuse was compounded by a traumatic experience at the age of 7, when he was molested by a family friend. These early experiences left a significant mark on Gacy, influencing his later life in profound ways. Gacy's health problems began in his childhood, with a congenital heart condition and a blood clot in his brain, which added to his struggles. Despite these challenges, he sought to find his place in the world. One of the more disturbing anecdotes from his early years was his time working as a mortuary assistant in Las Vegas, where he had an unsettling encounter with a corpse. This incident seemed to hint at the darkness that would later consume him. Gacy's formative years were a complex interplay of external abuse and internal conflict. As a young man, he realized he was gay, yet he remained closeted, further complicating his identity in a time when such matters were taboo. These layers of secrecy and shame likely fed into the dual life he would later lead. These early life challenges, combined with his attempts to conform to societal norms, laid the groundwork for his future transgressions. The combination of an abusive home life, health issues, and emerging awareness of his sexual orientation created a storm of personal turmoil for Gacy. This environment, steeped in secrecy and fear, likely contributed to his inability to form healthy relationships, instead nurturing a capacity for deception and violence that would define his adult life. Gacy's personal life was as complex and troubled as his childhood. He married Marlyn Myers in 1964, and together they had 2 children, Michael and Christine. This marriage seemed to offer Gacy some semblance of normalcy, a chance to present a facade of a devoted husband and father. However, the marriage was short-lived. In 1968, Gacy was convicted of sodomy in Iowa, serving less than 2 years of a 10-year sentence. This conviction led to his divorce from Marlyn in 1969, marking the first of his failed attempts at a conventional life. In 1972, Gacy married Carol Hoff. This marriage, too, would unravel as suspicions grew around Gacy's activities. Hoff, who suspected his involvement with young men, eventually divorced him in 1976. This period in Gacy's life was marked by a dual existence. On the surface, he was a businessman and family man, yet he harbored deep-seated violent tendencies. His marriages were not just personal failures but also masks that concealed his sinister inclinations. Gacy's relationships were consistently marred by secrecy and deceit. His marriages were attempts to maintain an image of normalcy, but they were undercut by his criminal behavior and the pressure of living a lie. His inability to sustain meaningful connections with others can be traced back to the unresolved conflicts from his childhood. These personal struggles were not simply private matters but were intricately linked to the unfolding of his criminal career. Throughout these years, Gacy's personal life served as a smokescreen for his criminal activities. The facade of a family man allowed him to blend into the community and operate undetected. His ability to compartmentalize his life was both his greatest skill and his ultimate undoing. The breakdown of his marriages only served to isolate him further, pushing him deeper into his predatory lifestyle. One of the most chilling aspects of John Wayne Gacy's life was his creation of the Pogo the Clown persona. In the mid-1970s, Gacy joined a local clown club and began performing at parties, hospitals, and community events. This seemingly benign activity allowed him to present himself as a jovial and harmless figure, but it was a mask for his sinister intentions. The clown persona was not just a hobby, it was a calculated move to gain trust and access to potential victims. Gacy's criminal activities were as prolific as they were horrific. Between 1972 and 1978, he murdered at least 33 young men and boys in suburban Chicago. His modus operandi involved luring victims with promises of jobs, parties, or by impersonating a police officer. Once they were in his home, Gacy would torture, rape, and ultimately strangle them. His ability to manipulate and charm young men into trusting him was a testament to his cunning and the depths of his depravity. The Pogo the Clown persona was a grotesque metaphor for Gacy's entire existence. He was a man who hid behind a mask, both literally and figuratively. His crimes were methodical, and his ability to maintain his public facade while committing such heinous acts spoke to his psychopathic nature. The use of the clown costume was not just for entertainment, it was a tool of manipulation and a symbol of his dual life. Gacy's ability to lead a double life was a key factor in the extent of his crimes. The persona of Pogo the Clown allowed him to disarm his victims and the community at large. His crimes went undetected for years because he was able to project an image of normalcy and community involvement. This duplicity enabled him to carry out his brutal murders in the shadows, leaving a trail of devastation that would only be uncovered after his arrest. The investigation into John Wayne Gacy's crimes began in earnest in December 1978, following the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest. Police were led to Gacy after Piest was last seen meeting him about a job opportunity. This investigation was the unraveling of Gacy's meticulously maintained facade. As police dug deeper, they uncovered a pattern of disappearances linked to him, leading to a search of his home. The discovery of 29 bodies buried in the crawl space of his house was a gruesome testament to his crimes. Gacy's arrest marked the beginning of a legal saga that would capture national attention. In 1980, he was found guilty of 33 murders and sentenced to death. His trial was a media sensation, with Gacy's defense attempting to plead insanity. However, the jury saw through his manipulations, and he was sentenced to death. Gacy spent 14 years on death row, during which time he painted and maintained his innocence despite his confession. On May 10, 1994, he was executed by lethal injection, his last words being a defiant "kiss my ass." The legacy of John Wayne Gacy's crimes extends far beyond his execution. The horror of his actions led to significant changes in law enforcement and legislation. Gacy's case was instrumental in the creation of the Missing Child Recovery Act of 1984, a precursor to the Amber Alert system. This act was designed to improve the response to missing child cases, ensuring that the tragedy of Gacy's victims would lead to greater protections for others. Recent efforts to identify Gacy's unidentified victims through DNA testing have brought closure to some families, with identifications made as recently as 2021. These efforts underscore the lasting impact of his crimes in the ongoing quest for justice. Gacy's story remains a chilling reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath a veneer of normalcy, and the importance of vigilance in protecting the vulnerable. His legacy is one of horror, but also of change, as his crimes have spurred measures to prevent future tragedies.